Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to go over squats. You see them in my program. You're going to see them in pretty much any program you come across, almost any program you come across. So we better be doing them correctly and safely. That way you can train hard, get the results you want without hurting yourself. Now, as usual, the things I'm going to go over today are things that work well for most people. If you have some sort of pathology in your knees or in your back, please check with a physician. I am not your trainer and I do not have you in front of me. So again, these are general guidelines, help get over some misconceptions about it, and actually I'm going to give you some visuals here in a second. I started in front of the whiteboard because the last thing I wanted was for me to just show you a squat and everybody tried to imitate my squat. I have a long torso, shorter legs, my knees track over my toes because of that, as we're about to go over here. And it's not the squat that's going to work for everybody. I have very open hip sockets, so I can squat deep relatively easily with an upright posture. You might have longer legs, or you might be female, as opposed to me being a male, or any difference between us that could change the way you do things. I'm going to show you some pointers that are going to help you find the best squat for you. But first, we're going to go over some basic principles. The first thing is any of our major movements, this being the first video on it, have to have these three criteria. It has to be done safely. It has to have a lasting positive change to the tissue, so we're looking for tissue development. And the last part, it has to translate to real life. So this kind of separates the way I do things from a lot of other systems. Like you look at bodybuilding, all they care about is the tissue, but it might not translate to performance. Power lifters, the way they squat is very sport specific. So that might not translate to you walking up the stairs or just going about your daily life, picking up a case of water or something along those lines. So it has to have all of those criteria, and just like as we went over with variables of fitness and the principles of training, there are trade-offs to all of it. So the way I teach squats is going to be kind of the everyman, the best of all worlds, if we can get it. And again, the first thing being safe. One concept I want to drive home is we want whole foot contact to the ground. This is something that is going to be beneficial for everything you do, but learn to feel the floor. Feel it on the balls of your feet, rock back, feel it on the heels. Now feel pressure on the whole foot. So now you're mindful of the pressure on your foot. And what they did, what we saw in the last 50 years or so, is because we're trying to protect knees, people were doing a sit back type method on the squat. You see that shin is very vertical, but the trade-off to that is you have to have a lean forward because now the center of mass is going directly over that foot. If you don't lean forward, you're going to fall back down. The joint furthest from the resistance is going to be the one that carries the biggest load. And I pointed at the hip there, but what we really are concerned about is the low back. So yes, we did protect the knee. The knee is almost in zero danger there, almost. But the low back is going to carry the load. So now if you're lifting heavy or you're not used to this, you have a chance of hurting that part of your body. We're going to skip the middle because that's kind of the ideal. And this was taught to combat this, rocking up on the toes. If you rock up on the toes, well, now you can see that center of mass goes over the hip, over the front of the foot. So again, on the ball of the foot, but that puts all the pressure on the knee. Not only does it put all the pressure on the knee, but it's actually a shear force, which means that knee joint is actually being pulled apart sideways. So we want to avoid this, but we don't want to do this to overcompensate. So what we're looking at is pressure through the midfoot. Again, the whole foot feels the pressure, which is going to center that mass right through the middle of the thigh, right through the shin, right down the foot. Everything has equal pressure. Again, this works for most people. If you have underlying pathology, see a doctor. Now, the perfect squat for you is how you can get to this position while feeling pressure in the whole foot as deep as you can. I'm going to show you on the floor here in a second how to do your foot placement, and I'm going to show you some ins and outs of it as far as how to get lower and how to get deeper. You want to do this progressively. This is one thing we can progressively overload. If you're really tight, then start high, stretch, and stay light until you can get to a decent squat, then start upping the load. But again, the best squat for you is the one where you're feeling whole pressure on the floor or under your foot the whole way down as deep as you can get. So that's the first general concept. The second one, this is going to protect the knees, is an idea of torque. The knee is made to handle external torque, which means the rotation goes out. If you look at your ACL and your PCL, I'm going to represent them with two fingers here. You see this in Kerry Starrett's work if you want to get deeper into this. This will be the ACL, and the one behind it will be the PCL, and this is my right knee. So I'm using my right hand. It might be flipped on your screen, but this is my right knee. If you capture that and you twist, you see it just gets tighter as I rotate out. But if you twist in, you open it up. You expose the tissues. It's not made to rotate in. So whole foot contact, and the last thing you want is your knees collapsing in as you go. And I'm going to show you some techniques for that. Also, this is where bands would come in. So let's go out into the floor and let's go over how this looks. All right, we're on the floor here because I want to show you a good way to determine how far apart your feet should be in the squat, because your leg length, your torso length, like in my situation, how deep or shallow your hip sockets are going to make it easier or more difficult to have a narrow stance. So my stance is relatively narrow. It's about hip width, but most people are going to be about shoulder width, and some people may be even a little bit further out. Now we do want a toes forward kind of trajectory, because you shut off as you turn your toes out. You shorten the external rotators of your hip, which are the ones that keep your knees from collapsing in. The shorter they are, the less active they are, and you actually inhibit their ability to prevent that from happening. So even on a small level, you could have your knees collapsing in and causing a lot of wear and tear on that meniscus, that ACL, that medial collateral ligament, or having your patella, which is your kneecap, rubbing against one side, and then over time creating a situation where you've got the kind of an arthritic effect on the backside of it called chondromalacia patella. It's where it rubs and it becomes like sandpaper, gets pitted, and it's very uncomfortable, to say the least. It will cause a lot of inflammation. But I like to do this on all fours because there's no pressure on my back. So I can keep this tight, and I can find my proper stance without hurting myself in the process. I'll show you a standing version too, but this is where I start with most people. So my toes are forward, straight into the ground, and I have my ankles dorsiflexed, which means I am pulling them towards the shin bone, not pointing them away. That's plantar flexed. This is dorsiflexed. Then I'm going to push my hips back, keeping my back as flat as possible. And from here, if you've got a mirror, you can do this. I'm looking at the camera here, but you can push back, and if you see your hips drop forward, well, try a different position. And then keep trying different width of your feet and your knees. Now your knee always follows your foot. Push back. All right, I can get as deep as I can there without any pain in my knees. You'll feel the pain in your knees if that's the problem, or without my hips tightening up too soon to get that what we call a butt wink. So this is a good way to find your proper stance. And where we go, right there, that's the best one for me. And voila, it is my normal squat stance. So you do that, you'll either feel pain on the inside of your knee or tightness in your hips where that butt starts to round. And you find the furthest you can get back without having that pain or tightness, and that's going to be the stance for you. Now, if you're really tight and you're not used to squatting, you may just be able to get to about here. That's okay. There's no load. We can explore our body, and then we'll start working that depth. And in fact, this little test here is a good stretch that you can use to increase your range of motion. So that's a good way to find your squat stance. You can do a similar method using a rack or a wall, like a door frame, and you can find the lowest you can go without having to use that. So if you're too far back, you'll fall. But if you're in the right position. Okay, so we've gone over the basics. We've gone over foot placement, so how wide your feet should be apart. I want to do a demonstration on that torque, and then I'll show you the 3 most common types of squats that we're going to do. So that torque, if you see, I'm not moving at all, but what I did was basically grab the floor with my feet and rotate out. What we say, spreading the floor, spread the floor apart, and you'll feel tension form all the way up to your butt muscles, and you have a couple that run sideways that are responsible for rotating that hip out. Those are going to be what help you prevent those knees from collapsing in. Now, I'm on turf with rubber soles, so nothing moves, but if I get on a couple carpet sliders here, you'll see I do the exact same thing, and I spread out. Not only spread out, but have a rotation coming back. So my foot would go like that, but it stays still when I'm on solid ground. Don't try that carpet slider thing at home. That's something I practice for demonstration purposes. I have done the splits on accident. But again, as soon as you rotate out, you're going to feel that tension from the outside edge of your foot all the way up to your hips. That creates a cam and prevents the knees from collapsing in as you squat. So that's, again, just a demonstration to show you that if you get your whole foot feeling the floor and you spread it on the way down and you work on the flexibility involved, you will find the proper squat for you, for your leg length, for your torso length, for your hip sockets, and also your ankle flexibility as well. So creating that external torque protects the knees while you're getting to that optimal squat. Now, the first one we do under load is the goblet squat. This is kind of our introduction to all squats, not only because it's lighter and you can use you can use a dumbbell, kettlebell, can of soup, I don't care, anything as your weight, but not only is it lighter, but that weight's out in front of you. So if you're falling back because of a flexibility issue, you can actually adjust the position of that weight, and you see my body falling back. So if you have a mobility issue that makes you fall backwards as you squat, as we showed with that rack squat to find your depth, you can actually adjust for that using that weight. So this is a great learning tool. In addition to that, if you're having trouble with that spreading the floor concept, this is also where bands would come in. So you would put that band around your knees, and now you've got something pulling in on your knees, and you can consciously push out on it. Now you don't want to be, doing the splits in midair there, but that gives you a little bit of a cue, and you can use that as kind of a crutch till you get this motion down, and then I say wean off of it at that point. Maybe warm up with it, and then try to do your working sets without it. So goblet squat, band squat, it's kind of the start to learn. The next progression after the goblet squat would be the traditional back squat, if you have access to a rack, of course. Now normally you would unrack it facing the rack. This is for demonstration purposes, just so you can see me a little bit better. I'm going to unrack it backwards, but again, normally you'd be facing the rack, and optimally you would have safeties up, especially if you're pushing the load to anywhere near failure. But high bar, so it goes up above the traps, not a low bar squat like you'd see in powerlifting. Up above the traps, you would grip the bar, get your stance, and now that our spine is loaded, what we want to do is grip the bar a little bit and pull it down, and that sets the biggest muscles in your back, which are your lats, your latissimus dorsi. So they're assisting your spine in carrying the load. So muscle is doing the work, not the discs and the bones themselves. So same rules in the lower body, but add a pull down to activate those back muscles, spread the floor, stay nice and tall, and then get as deep as you can. Again, if you have a flexibility issue, just go to your comfortable depth and then work on the flexibility separately until you finally start getting lower. Also, don't progress the load too far until you've addressed that. So that's the back squat. Front squat, this is the clean grip. Now you're gonna notice that I'm much taller in this stance. I don't lean forward as much because the weight is in front. That weight being in front changes where the pressure is. So when you're programming these, for all you coaches out there or your DIY self-train, if you want more quad action, you would shift the weight forward by doing a front squat or that goblet squat. If you want more glute and hamstring action, you would put the weight behind you, so now you're getting a little bit more action back there. Remember, the joint farthest from the load is the one doing the most work. So from a programming standpoint, I do the front squats if I'm doing a lot of deadlifts and hip thrusts, especially if they're close in frequency, so that way I can make it a little bit more quad dominant while giving the glutes and hamstrings a break from those bridges and deadlifts. Now also the front squat, I showed you the clean grip. There's the crossover grip. I don't recommend this unless you're just not doing them very often, but it does keep the elbows higher, makes it a little easier for that. But the caution there is you're gonna have a preferred side, and whatever that preferred side is, you're gonna get a little cockeyed if you do them too often. If you can switch back and forth without having a preferred side, you can kind of mitigate that. If you need to practice these, I like just doing the rack position because I'm practicing shelving it on the shoulders so my wrists and elbows aren't carrying the load as I get deeper into that squat. If they fall forward, you're gonna lose the weight. So it definitely keeps you honest. So that's a demonstration on that torque, the three main squats we use, and the difference between them. And we'll just keep going. I'll do a deadlift video. We'll keep those educational videos coming. Again, I'm not your trainer. If you don't feel comfortable with anything you saw today, hire one. Now you've got some information so you know who knows what they're doing. And then you can add the visual and tactile cues that someone live can give you and help you through the process. So if you're doing it yourself, be careful. If you're uncomfortable, hire somebody that knows what they're doing. Other than that, I will see y'all next time.